This speech is courtesy of Iran's English-language news channel, Press TV.
Greetings to and salutations to the Prophet of Islam, Prophet Muhammad, and his infallible household, and also the Imam of the martyrs, and the martyrs, particularly the nuclear martyrs. And salutations to the Imam of the time. May God expedite his reappearance. The month of Ramadan is a month of blessings. It's a month of seeking proximity to God Almighty. In this year's month of Ramadan, what I heard, based on what I've heard, many people in their prayers and supplications in the night of Qadr, the grand night, during the grand night, they prayed to God Almighty, praying for Iran's nuclear negotiating team in order to reach a good deal. And now I announce to the great nation of Iran that God has accepted their prayers and has responded to their prayers. Today, we are in a critical juncture in the history of, with respect to the history of our country and our revolution, and also the condition that prevails in the region. In fact, in the past 12 years, that in fact witnessed illusions by the major powers, and such illusions were spread by them in the global community and for the public opinion. You see that this page has turned, and in fact a new chapter has been opened. This new chapter is based upon the fact that the solution, there are shorter routes with less cost in order to come up with solutions for the problems. Speaking of Iran's important nuclear issue, that on the one hand it had turned into a political and international issue, to the extent that it was raised at the UNSC and Chapter 7 of the UN, and there were several resolutions calling for sanctions against Iran. And on the other hand, the issue had turned into a subject for spreading Iranophobia in the region and the world, claiming that Iran is after manufacturing nuclear weapons, or WMDs. And on the other hand, you see that from the view of science and technology and development, it was from the view of research and development and scientific progress, this was an important issue for us, and it had turned into a subject related to our national pride and dignity. Economically speaking, those imposing sanctions had sought to put us under pressure, and that had created a difficult situation, a difficult condition in the society. As I had earlier said, the sanctions regime was never successful, but at the same time, it had affected people's lives.
من خوشحالم که امروز با
I am pleased that today,
23 ماهه
after 23 months of negotiations by the Islamic Republic of Iran with 6 world powers, today we have managed to reach a new point.
البته ماه رمضان همواره برای دولت 11
Of course, the month of Ramadan has always been a month of blessing for the 11th administration, and it's been a fateful month. And the month of Ramadan 1392 Iranian calendar was the day for investiture, and then we had the day for the oath taking. And today you see that today for the deal reached between Iran and 6 world powers concerning the joint comprehensive plan of action.
ما برای حل موضوع و معضل هستی
In order to resolve this nuclear issue,
در بخش‌های مختلف قدم‌های
we
لازم
had to
رو
take the necessary steps in different sectors.
از لحاظ سیاسی میبایست
From the political point of view,
تمهیدات لازم سیاسی را آماده
we had
کنیم
to make the necessary political
هم از
arrangements
لحاظ افکار عمومی
from the view of the public opinion in order to know that
خواندن بیانیه‌ها
to
نیست
negotiate does not mean to just read out the texts of statements.
به معنای
To negotiate means
بدبستان است
to bargain.
مذاکره به این معناست که پولی
It
داده می
means
شود
you
و خانه مورد نظر
give money
خریداری می شود
and you
ما
purchase your
دنبال صدقه
desired
نبودیم تا
house.
کسی چیزی به ما
We were not
مجانی بدهد
after
ما دنبال
benefiting
مذاکره
from
بودیم
charities. We were after
دنبال اون بودیم
negotiating.
که بر مبنای
We were
منافع ملی و
after
مصالح ملی
protecting our national interests, and we were after engaging
در
in
پیش بگیریم
a just bargaining process in order to maintain our national interests. We have always stressed that this is not going to be a win-lose negotiation. It's not, I mean, it's not that you see one side becoming a winner, emerging victorious, the other side becoming a loser. If it's a win-lose negotiation, it's not going to be a sustainable agreement. We will not come up with a sustainable agreement. In order to attain a sustainable agreement, there should be a win-win situation for both parties and both sides. We did clarify this, and our negotiators have started their talks and negotiations since 23 months ago. In order to have an achievement in the course of negotiations, we were in need of domestic and national consensus. It is quite clear that politicians, associations, and political factions, they do not share common views, but with respect to subjects pertaining to our national interests and national security and national development, such, and we see the nuclear issue is related to our national security, it's related to national development, and also it's related to our national interests. So you see that fortunately in this free democratic atmosphere prevailing in our society, we managed to reach a consensus in this regard.
راه مذاکره را قبل از
The
آغاز این دولت
path of negotiations before this administration, and basically from the very beginning of the emergence of this problem, I mean 12 years ago, that dates back to 12 years ago, based on the view of the leader of the Islamic Revolution, the path of negotiations started from the very first day, and
82 این مذاکرات را
we have
در تهران
been negotiating since 2003 in Tehran or the capital cities of neighboring countries or the European capitals.
دیدیم و شاهد
We have been
بودیم و
witnessing these
ادامه دادیم.
negotiations, and we
منتها
continued the
مردم ما
talks.
در انتخابات خرداد 92
In the course
در
of
این زمینه
the 2013 presidential elections, our people expressed their views
و به صراحت
and
اعلام کردند
explicitly said that we want an administration
دستاوردهای
that
هسته‌ای را
would
توأم با
actually
صلح
protect the nuclear achievements of the country, along with protecting peace and also contributing to the country's development and also obtaining public welfare.
مد نظر قرار دهد و همین مسیر و راهی بود که
And this was the
دولت
path
11
that the 11th administration pursued.
البته ملت بزرگ ایران
Of course, the
همواره
great
ملت ادب،
nation of Iran is a symbol of courtesy and logic and rationality. From the very first day,
مراسم
on the
تحریف
day
گفتم.
of the oath-taking, on the day of the oath-taking ceremony, I said that the West can interact with us, provided that it sets aside and eliminates the approach of intimidation and threat, and instead the West should choose the path of dignity and respect. What we have attained today as a deal within the framework of that comprehensive joint plan of action, it has its roots in Iran's interaction and also dignity shown by the P5+1 group. And in case of the absence of these two parameters, we would not have been able to come up with any achievement. In the meantime, in order to gain success in the course of negotiations, we had to be able to actually improve our economy under sanctions and in the condition of stagflation. When we started the negotiations, we had an inflation rate above 40%, and our economic growth rate was minus 6.8%. But in the course of negotiations, by improving our economic condition, we managed to contain the inflation, and we came up with a positive economic growth. And this was the strongest message conveyed by the 11th administration, the strongest message sent by us to the P5+1 group of countries. At the same time, what mattered the most was the steadfastness and patience and resistance shown by the courageous nation of Iran. And today, with the grace of God, has been the year of steadfastness and resistance, and at the same time brought about victory and success for us. And this was an indication of people's steadfastness and resistance, and such a resistance and steadfastness brought the other party to the negotiation table. In the course of these negotiations, we were pursuing 4 objectives. The first objective was to protect our nuclear capabilities and technologies and even nuclear activities to continue such activities inside the country. The second objective was to actually put an end to the inhumane and tyrannical sanctions. The third objective was to address all the resolutions that, from our point of view, those were illegal resolutions. We were after annulling all these illegal resolutions issued by the UN Security Council. And the fourth objective was to actually take the nuclear dossier out of Chapter 7 and take it out of the UNSC. And based on the deal reached today, and based on the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, all the four objectives have been attained. Of course, in the past 23 months, in order to observe the red lines and at the same time gain our objectives, you are aware that an extraordinary effort was made by Iranian diplomats and lawyers and economists and also nuclear scientists. Such a trend did continue. On the initial days of the negotiations, the other party told us that during the period of limitations, and you see that based on the deal has set that period of limitation to be 8 years, and during this period of limitation, they said that Iran should have only 100 centrifuges. After continued discussions and debates, they came up with the figure of 1,000 centrifuges, and after a great deal of resistance, they said that they will agree with 4,000 centrifuges, something that cannot be changed anymore. But today, the deal was reached, and based on this deal, we have 6,000 centrifuges, 5,000 in Natanz and 1,000 in Fordo. These centrifuges will remain, and all these centrifuges in Natanz will continue their enrichment activities. They said that your limitation period must be set for 20 to 25 years. Later, they said 20 plus 10 years, and said that 20 years must be their final viewpoint. But this figure was reduced to 10. It was eventually reduced to 10 years, and in the course of the final negotiations, the figure was reduced to 8 years. Concerning research and development, they said that research and development must be only about IR1. It's feasible only concerning IR1. It was a ridiculous statement. It was illogical, because we already had IR1 and it was operating. Then research and development did not make any sense. Later they said it's going to be maximum IR2, and eventually they said it must not go beyond IR8. And what the Islamic Republic of Iran, what the Islamic Republic of Iran was seeking was IR6 and IR8. And we wanted a deal so that on the day of the implementation of the deal, the UF6 gas would be injected into IR8. And today, we have attained such a deal today. Regarding Iraq, they said that a reactor can remain in Iraq, but heavy water has no meaning there, is meaningless, and that they consider this as the red line. But we have reached a deal today. And based on this common deal, reference has been explicitly made to heavy water, and that Iraq reactor will be completed with heavy water
نسبت به مسئله
based on the deal.
فوردو میگفتن
Regarding Fordo, they said
نام
that
فوردو بردن هم سخته و
it's
شنیدن
really
اون
even difficult to
سخت‌تر.
hear the name of
نه شما
Fordo.
بگویید و
Do not
نه ما میشنویم.
name it, and we're gonna
و بعد
we won't
گفتن
hear
در
it.
فوردو
And then they
هیچ
said that,
سانتریفیوژی
and they said
لااقل
that
نباید باشد.
there should be no
و در
centrifuges
اونجا
in
مرکز
Fordo.
تحقیقات ایزوتوپ‌های
And
پایدار
also
خواهد بود.
it's going to be a research
و
center
بالاخره
for
بعد از ماه‌ها
sustainable
چانه‌زنی
isotopes, and after several months of
گفتن
bargaining,
یک
they said
کسکید
that
164 سانتریفیوژ فقط در فوردو بماند.
one cascade should
و
remain
من خلاصه کنم
in
امروز در
Fordo,
بیش از
164.
1000 سانتریفیوژ
And let me tell you
استقرار
that
خواهد داشت.
there will
به
be
اضافه اینکه
1,000
بخشی از
centrifuges in
فوردو
Fordo,
برای
and part of
تحقیق و
Fordo will
توسعه
be
در
allocated
زمینه
to
ایزوتوپ‌های
R&D
پایدار خواهد
concerning
بود.
sustainable
در زمینه لغو
isotopes.
تحریم‌ها
Regarding
می‌گفتند
the
تحریم‌ها
annulment or
همه
lifting of
یکجا که
sanctions,
هرگز.
they said that the sanctions will not be
تحریم‌ها
lifted
قدم
all
به قدم
at
ما
once,
اول
and they
باید
said that
ماه‌ها
the sanctions must be lifted
اعتماد
step by
پیدا
step,
کنیم.
and several months have to
تا
pass in order to
اونگاه
build
به
trust,
تدریج
and then we will
تحریم‌ها را
gradually
نه
lift the
لغو
sanctions.
به
And they
اسم
said that
لغو
we
را
are not going
فعلا
to lift the
نبرید.
sanctions. Do not speak of lifting
تحریم‌ها
of
را
sanctions. And
تعلیق
they
کنیم.
said the
و
sanctions have to
بعدها
be
در
first
سال‌های
suspended,
بعد
and then in years to
اگر
come,
آژانس
if
گزارش
the
مثبت داد و ما
IAEA
اعتماد پیدا کردیم
gave a
قدم
positive
به قدم
report,
لغو
then
شود.
the sanctions would be lifted step by step.
امروز به ملت شریف ایران
Today,
اعلام
I
می‌کنم
announced
که
to
طبق
the
این
great
توافق
nation of Iran that
در
based
روز
on this
اجرای
deal, on
توافق
the day of the implementation of the deal,
تمامی
all
تحریم‌ها
the sanctions,
حتی تحریم‌های
even
تسلیحاتی موشکی و
arms
اشاعه‌ای هم
embargoes, and even missile-related
به صورتی که
sanctions,
در قطعنامه بوده لغو
as
خواهد شد.
stipulated by the
تمام
resolutions, they will all be lifted.
مالی،
And
تمام
all the
تحریم‌های
financial
بانکی،
and banking
تمام
sanctions
مربوط به بیمه،
related to
مربوط به حمل و
insurance,
نقل،
transportation,
تمام تحریم‌های
and
مربوط به
also sanctions
پتروشیمی،
related to
فلزات گرانبها،
refineries and valuable metals,
تمام
precious metals,
تحریم‌های
and
اقتصادی
all the
به طور
economic
کامل
sanctions
لغو
will be
خواهد شد
fully
و نه
lifted.
تعلیق.
They will be
و
lifted, not
حتی
suspended.
تحریم
And even
تسلیحاتی هم کنار
the arms
گذاشته
embargo
می‌شود.
will be
برای
eliminated,
5 سال
and
نوعی محدودیت
there will be
و
a
پس
sort
از
of
آن
limitation
لغو
for
خواهد
5
شد.
years, and
در
later
زمینه
it will be
اشاعه‌ای
lifted.
هم
And
کالاهای دو منظوره
speaking of
در کمیته‌ای مورد
commodities
بررسی قرار
or
خواهد
dual-use
گرفت.
commodities or goods, there will be a committee that the case will be
نسبت به
looked into by that
لغو
committee, and in this way,
قطعنامه‌های سازمان ملل میگفتند
regarding the
قطعنامه‌ای که شما
UN's
اجرا
resolutions,
نکردید چگونه ما
they
لغو
said that how
کنیم؟
can we
لااقل این
annul
قطعنامه‌ها
a
را برای 6
resolution
ماه
that
اجرا
has not been
کنید
implemented, and they told us to
تا
implement
بعد
these
زمان لغو
resolutions
آن
for
فرا
at least 6
برسد.
months, and in this way
طبق توافق
the
امروز
resolutions will be annulled based on
در
today's deal.
روزهای آینده
On the
که این
in the
توافق
upcoming
در
days,
شورای
when
امنیت سازمان
this
ملل
deal
به تصویب خواهد
is
رسید
endorsed by
تمام 6
UNSC,
قطعنامه قبلی
all the previous
لغو خواهد
6
شد.
resolutions will be annulled.
همچنین
And
در
also
زمینه اینکه
regarding
پرونده ایران به طور کامل از شورای امنیت برای
the nuclear
همیشه
dossier of
خارج
Iran,
شود
in order to take it out of the UNSC, they said that the IAEA should present a report that will include a 20-year period and later 15-year period. But today, without considering that report by the IAEA, after the implementation of the deal, the dossier will be taken out of the UNSC after 10 years.
ممکن است از ما بپرسند که آیا این توافق
We may be asked whether this deal is based upon confidence and trust in 5+1 group of countries, and if it was the case, then we would, and there was no need for 23 months of negotiations, and we had 18 nights of continued negotiations. Speaking of trust, the implementation of this deal will be the starting point for a test. If this deal is precisely implemented, every step of the implementation of this deal can gradually
بردارد.
eliminate mistrust.
روشن است که ما
It is
امروز
quite clear that
بر مبنای دقت کامل و
based
نظارت
on
بر توافق کارمون رو
we're going to
پیش
start
میبریم
and proceed
بدون
by
اینکه از پیش
closely
بخواهیم
monitoring the
نسبت به
implementation of this
کشورهایی
deal.
که سابقه
And of course, there
بسیار
are
بدی
countries that have
برخی
a
از
very
اونها
bad record. Some of these
نسبت به
countries have
ایران
a very bad
داشتند
record
و
concerning
برخی هم
Iran,
سابقه
and
خوبی
some of
نداشتند
them do not have a good record concerning
اعتماد
Iran.
کنیم. البته این
Of course,
توافق دو طرفه است.
this is a mutual
ما
deal.
یک
It's
بار
a reciprocal
توافق را
deal.
محک زدیم.
We have
اون
already
هم در
examined such
توافق
a
موقت ژنو بود.
deal that
و
was
بر آن
actually
مبنا
an interim
در زمینه
agreement
توافق نهایی
reached in Geneva. And
راه
regarding the
نهادیم.
and we took the necessary
امروز
steps for attaining the
اجرای
final deal.
توافق دو طرفه
Today,
است.
the implementation of the deal
اگر
is
اونها به این
reciprocal
توافق
if
پایبند باشند
they abide
ما البته به توافق
and adhere to this
پایبندیم.
deal. We will also comply with it.
ملت ایران همواره در تاریخ
The Iranian
اگر
nation
عهد و پیمانی بسته
has always shown
پای
this.
پیمان خود ایستاده.
It has
ما
always
پای
fulfilled
این
its
پیمان
promise
خواهیم ایستاد
in the course
به
of
شرط
history,
آنکه
and we will fulfill our
طرف
promise
مقابل ما
provided that
پای
the other
پیمان خود
party would also
ایستاده
fulfill its
باشد.
promises.
البته این توافق مراحلی دارد.
Of course, there are several steps and stages. With respect to the deal today was actually the first stage. That means all the 7 countries have agreed concerning the text and annexes, and they have actually agreed with the full text and the annexes of the deal. Speaking of the next stage in the days to come, the text of the deal and also the text that has been prepared for the UNSC, it has to be endorsed by the UN Security Council based on Article 25, not in Chapter 7, and in case related to annulment of previous resolutions based on Article 41. Later, there are stages in other countries, and these stages have to continue. And after determination of these stages on a day, that is the day known as the Day of Agreement. In fact, today was the day of a joint statement. Several days later, when the UN or the UNSC endorses the statement, that will be the day of finalizing the agreement. After approximately 2 months, we will reach that day of agreement, and the day of agreement is a day when the EU and the US will openly announce and declare the lifting of all sanctions, and they will openly announce their decisions. And then from that day, Iran's measures will begin, and these measures will be accompanied with their executive actions for the lifting of the sanctions, and that's going to take up some time. That may also take 2 months. That will be the day of the implementation of the deal. So several months from now, we will have the day for the full implementation of the deal. We have these stages before us, and of course, this is the most important day in the past 12 years. Today is a day that, historically speaking, major world countries and powers have recognized Iran's nuclear program. Today is the day that after 12 years, the world powers have announced that regarding nuclear technology and modern technologies, they will help Iran. And today is a day that world powers have announced that all sanctions will be lifted and all tyrannical resolutions will be annulled, and a normal situation will prevail in relations with Iran. Today is an end. Today marks an end to acts of tyranny and oppression against the great nation of Iran, and at the same time it's a starting point for a new trend in order to commence new cooperation at the global level. Speaking of the people of Shiraz, Isfahan, Tabriz, Khorasan, Ahvaz, Tehran, Kerman, and other cities, they are witnessing that the chains of sanctions have been torn apart, and they are happy for this. And at the same time, the people of Gaza and the West Bank and the people of Quds, the people of Lebanon, they are also happy because the usurper Zionist regime made futile efforts in the past 23 months, and all these futile efforts have been crushed and defeated, and the regional nations are also pleased because many baseless pretexts for acts of tyranny against the region, claiming that Iran is after manufacturing a nuclear weapon, a nuclear bomb. They will all these pretexts will come to an end if some of the 5+1 countries want to announce that we prevented Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon. The whole world knows very well that a manufacturing of a nuclear bomb based on a fatwa by the leader is considered as haram, forbidden by religion, and also a wrong action. Iran has never sought to manufacture a nuclear weapon and will never seek manufacturing a nuclear weapon in case of an agreement or the absence of any agreement. So if they want to speak of any achievement, they should speak of a real achievement. The real achievement is that a new atmosphere has been created in the region for the sake of cooperation at the regional and global levels. I deem it necessary here to thank all those people who have played their role in order to attain this historic deal. I wish to appreciate the great nation of Iran for its steadfastness and resistance in the past 12 years in the face of pressures, and I wish to thank the leader of the Islamic Revolution who guided us during hardships, and he guided the nation and the administration through his prudence and provided us guidelines, and he also shouldered a heavy burden. I also wish to thank the Parliament, the Speaker of the Parliament, the Judiciary Chief, the armed forces that have always supported the nation, the government, and the Islamic establishment, the Expediency Council, the Assembly of Experts, the seminaries, the sources of emulation, academicians, young people, women, and all the people from different walks of life. I wish to appreciate them all, and their smiles have always given us hope, and their decisions have always empowered us. I declare this, that in case of criticism, everyone is free to criticize, but I will not allow anyone to destroy people's hope for economic prosperity, people's hope for peace and security. I will not peace and security in the region and the world. I will not allow anyone to destroy such a hope through lying or leveling allegations and so on. I will not allow anyone to harm people's trust. Today is not the end day. Actually, today is the day is a day that marks a starting point for a new move, a new dynamism and exuberance, the starting day for a new hope, a better future for our young people, and a starting point for a more rapid move for the countries, for our great country Iran, for its development and progress. And in conclusion, I wish to address the regional and neighboring countries. Do not be deceived by the propaganda of the Zionist regime and the ill wishers of this nation. Iran and Iran's power is your power and your might. We consider regional security as our own security. We consider stability of regional states as our own stability. We consider science, knowledge, and our development. These are to our scientific progress. These are all to the benefit of neighboring and regional states. Iran has not been after WMDs and is not after WMDs, will not be after WMDs. Iran has not been and is not after and will not be after putting pressure on regional states. The country, speaking of our, and we see a new chapter has been opened in our relations with you. We call for greater cordiality, greater brotherhood, more unity, and further expansion of relations. Thank you very much. The great nation of Iran. We look forward to your further progress and dynamism, and we will tread this path successfully to its end with your help. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.